The high desert breathes differently at dawn. It inhales frost and exhales gold, pulling mist from the canyon floor like a mother drawing a blanket from her sleeping child. The light comes slowly here, reluctant, as if it too has learned to be cautious in a land where mercy is rationed and memory runs deep as aquifer. Water. Elena's hands move through the dough with the rhythm of ritual. She kneads on a flat stone outside her cabin, her knuckles white with flour, her forearms lean and sun-darkened. The dough folds, resists, yields. Folds again. She does not think while she works. Thinking is a luxury she abandoned 3 years ago, when the silence first moved into her bones and made a home there. The cabin behind her is small, pine-weathered, perched on the edge of a mesa like a prayer left unanswered. Smoke curls from the chimney in a thin grey thread. A garden struggles in the red earth nearby. Squash vines, cornstalks bowing under their own weight, tomatoes that taste like dust and stubbornness. She hums, not loudly, not even consciously. It's a melody her mother once sang in a language she's half forgotten, a tune that surfaces when her hands are busy and her mind is quiet. The notes rise soft and unpolished into the morning air, carried on the same wind that bends the sage and stirs the juniper. The humming is all she has left of her voice. 3 years ago, when the riders came, dust-blind and hollow-eyed with want, they took everything that could be taken. Her husband, her words, the part of her that believed in safety. She does not sing because she is happy. She hums because her body remembers music even when her heart has forgotten the lyrics. And then, hoofbeats, soft at first, distant, like a heartbeat heard through water. Then closer, deliberate, a single horse moving across the wall. Hard pan with the gait of someone who knows this land the way a falcon knows the shape of the sky. Elena's hands, still the dough sags between her fingers, warm and alive. She does not look up. To look is to invite. To acknowledge is to open a door she has nailed shut. So she keeps her eyes on the bread, on the flour, dusting her wrists, on the stone beneath her palms, worn smooth by repetition. The hoofbeats stop. Silence, not the empty kind, the full kind. The kind where the whole world leans in to listen. She lifts her head. He sits astride a paint horse, 20 paces away, motionless as a petroglyph. An Apache rider, lean and weathered, his skin the color of fired clay, his hair bound in red cloth. He wears no war paint, carries no rifle across his back, only a bow slung low. And in his eyes, something Elena hasn't seen in another human being for a long, long time. Recognition. Not of her face, of her song. His gaze is steady, unblinking, the kind of look that doesn't take, it simply observes. He does not dismount, does not speak. He only tilts his head slightly, the way a wolf does when it hears something beneath the snow. Elena's breath catches in her throat. For a moment, neither of them moves. The wind fills the space between them, carrying the scent of sage and horses and something older, cedar smoke perhaps, or the memory of rain. The paint horse flicks an ear. The rider's hand rests loose on the reins, patient as stone. And then he does something she does not expect. He closes his eyes. Not in threat, not in dismissal. In listening, her pulse hammers against her ribs. She thinks of running. She thinks of the rifle inside, propped against the doorframe, cold and heavy and useless because her hands are shaking and she hasn't fired it in 2 years. She thinks of all the ways silence can be broken, all the ways a woman alone becomes a target in a world that measures worth in what can be owned or destroyed. But he does not move. He only listens. And so, without deciding to, without planning it, she hums again, softly at first. A single note, tentative, like the first drop of rain after a drought. Then another. The melody her mother sang while braiding her hair, while stirring beans over a fire, while rocking her to sleep in a house that no longer exists in a time that feels like myth. The rider opens his eyes. There is no hunger in them, no greed, only something that looks impossibly like grief. He speaks. His voice is low, rough-edged, shaped by a language she does not know but somehow understands, in the way one understands the meaning of thunder or the stillness before snow. Shije Yuti. She does not know the words, but she hears the weight of them. My mother used to sing. He dismounts, slowly, with the careful grace of someone who has learned that sudden movements cost lives. The paint horse nickers softly, nosing at the sparse grass. The rider walks forward 3 steps, then stops, close enough to see her face, far enough to honor the distance fear requires. Elena's hands return to the dough. It's instinct. Work is safety. Work is armor. She kneads harder, faster, her breath shallow. He kneads the air with his hands, mimicking her motions. Then he points to the dough. To her? To himself? His fingers move in gestures she half understands, a universal language of hunger, of offering, of shared labor. You want bread? She whispers, her voice comes out cracked, unfamiliar. She hasn't spoken aloud to another person in 6 months. He shakes his head, points again, this time to his chest, then to the dough, then to her hands. Not to take, to make. She stares at him, the audacity of it, the strangeness. A warrior asking to knead bread with a woman whose people have stolen his land, burned his villages, penned his kin behind wire and promises. And yet here he stands, his hands open, his posture not of demand, but of request. She should say no. She should reach for the rifle. She should scream. Instead, she steps aside. He moves to the stone, kneels, places his hands, scarred, strong, dirt-lined, into the dough beside hers. For a moment their fingers brush. She flinches. He does not. They knead together. At first, it is awkward. His rhythm is different, firm, patient, methodical, the way one works leather or weaves sinew. Hers is frantic, self-protective, shaped by fear, disguised as efficiency. But slowly, their hands begin to synchronize, press, fold, turn, press, fold, turn. The dough softens, smooths, becomes something more than flour and water. And she hums again. This time, he hums with her. His voice is deeper, rougher, a bass line beneath her melody. He does not know the song, but he follows it the way a stream follows stone, finding the path, shaping itself to the terrain. The two melodies braid together, imperfect and beautiful, rising into the morning like smoke. Tears streak her face. She does not wipe them away. She kneads and hums and cries, and for the first time in 3 years, she is not alone. They bake the bread in her stone oven, feeding the fire with juniper and dried mesquite. The flames crackle and hiss, throwing shadows that dance across their faces. He does not ask her story. She does not ask his. Some truths are too heavy for words. When the bread is done, they break it together. The crust is golden, dusted with ash and flour. The inside is soft, still steaming. She tears off a piece and hands it to him. He takes it with both hands, bows his head briefly, a gesture of thanks, and eats in silence. She eats too. It tastes like every bread her mother ever made. Like safety. Like home. They sit outside the cabin as the sun climbs higher, painting the canyon walls in shades of rust and amber. The paint horse grazes nearby, content. A raven circles overhead, cawing once, twice, then disappearing into the blue. He speaks again. This time, she listens not to the words, but to the cadence. The pause is the shape of grief carried in his throat. Shida I kadu idla igida. My people are no longer here. She understands. Mine either, she whispers. He looks at her, nods once. The silence between them is no longer empty. It is full of everything that cannot be said. Loss and survival, rage and exhaustion, the terrible weight of continuing when everything you loved has been erased. He stands, walks to his horse. For a moment, she thinks he will leave without another word, and part of her aches at the thought. But he returns. In his hand, he holds a small bundle wrapped in soft leather. He places it on the stone beside her, then steps back. She unwraps it carefully. Inside, seeds, corn, squash, beans. The kind that grow in harsh soil, the kind that remember. He points to the seeds, to her garden, to the earth, Ina, life. She looks up at him, and for the first time in 3 years, she smiles. It is small, fragile, but it is real. He mounts his horse, pauses, then he hums, just a few notes, the melody she taught him, carried now in his voice like a promise, and he rides away. The dust settles slowly, the wind returns. Elena sits with the seeds in her lap, the bread still warm beside her, and she hums, not because she is healed, but because she is healing. They say bread is the first thing we learned to make when we stopped running. That music is the last thing we lose when everything else is taken. She didn't know his name. He didn't know hers. But they spoke a language older than borders, deeper than blood. In a world that teaches us to fear the stranger, they chose to knead bread together. In a land that profits from division, they chose to hum the same song. Maybe that's all forgiveness ever is, a shared rhythm, a broken melody sung again. Maybe that's all hope ever is, planting seeds you'll never see bloom, for people you'll never meet, in soil that remembers every wound. She still hums that song. Sometimes on the wind, she swears she hears him humming too, and the bread still rises every single morning. Thank you for walking this story with me, for letting it breathe in the quiet places of your heart. I wonder which moment reached you the most. Was it the silence that broke, the song that built a bridge, or the seeds left behind, holding the promise of something new? I'd love to know, because stories, like bread, are meant to be shared.